Welcome to Creature Creator, a show where I help you recreate your favorite stories and characters at your gaming tables. Today's featured creature comes courtesy of the End King, who wrote in, "The anticipation of waiting for your Sadako video might be killing me." Well, don't worry, buddy. The end of your suffering is soon at hand, because today we're going out east to explore the dark mysteries of the ring for a 7-day crash course on cursed objects and Onryos. Here on Creature Creator. Hello there, I'm Flintworth, and before we begin, I want to let you all know that I intend to look both at the original ring from Japan back in 1998, as well as the American remake from 2002. While the former is easily the better of the two films, I still want to go and have our creations we make here today to be inspired by both of the films. That way, no matter which version your players may have seen, or at all, they will still be able to enjoy the horrors you're throwing at them. This also means that I'm not going to hold back on any spoilers for either of the films. So if you haven't seen them yet, I would highly recommend going back and giving at least the original Ring a watch first. It is an unquestionable classic of the horror genre that was only made possible by its very talented Japanese cast and crew, and I would not want to rob anyone of the chance to watch it unspoiled. As for the rest of us, there are 3 major tasks ahead that we'll need to go and tackle if we truly wish to capture the spirit of Ring. 1. We need to recreate the sinister Sadako. 2. We need to develop our own twisted take on her curse. And 3. We need to construct a mystery riddled with enough twists and turns to leave our players struggling to survive until our story's very end. All 3 of these dramatic elements can be found in every iteration of Sadako's tale, starting with the original story written by Koji Suzuki in 1991, straight up into the American remake in 2002, which is why you'll want to put in the effort to get every one of these story beats right. Take Sadako, for instance. Most parodies or copycats of the character assume that she is simply a creepy ghost of a girl with long black hair, when she is so much more than that. You see, the original inspiration for Sadako specifically came from a type of ghost in Japanese folklore called an Onryo, which traditionally are the souls of women who died with extreme hatred. I bring this up because if you are planning to run your story with 5th edition D&D, you're going to have some struggles. The stats for ghosts are far too tame for Onryos. The specters are too mindless, the wraiths too neutral. Only really the Revenant comes close to capturing their essence. But even they are way too zombie-like. Which means you dungeon masters are going to be in the same boat as your counterparts in other systems, and probably looking to have to homebrew your own creations together. Now, to help you all get started, I did put together a stat block that you can download in the description below, but it will still need a few extra touches from you to properly spice it up. What truly defines an Onryo is the seething hatred it had in its heart in the final moments of their life. In Sadako's case, her rage is the result of a lifetime of mistreatment that culminated in her surrogate father savagely beating her with an inch of her life before unceremoniously dumping her body inside a well. Sealed inside, as she slowly succumbed to her hunger and exhaustion, Sadako's anger only grew, culminating in her soul being transformed into the Onryo of cinema legend. And you know what? I'd be pretty pissed off too. But my main point here is that unless you're looking to recreate the ring scene for scene, you're gonna be looking to have to go and create a similar backstory for your own Onryo, which I would recommend you do by looking at your own life experiences. Try to recall an old school bully, an inconsiderate boss, or maybe even a horrible ex-lover, someone who you would never be able to forgive for all the money in the world. Try to picture the hell they put you through, the injustice, the emotional pain. Now, imagine them taking it too far and deciding that your life needs to end and you being unable to do a thing to stop them. That fear you may be feeling, that pain, that rage, is exactly what your Onryo needs to be consumed by. And I would recommend taking that nightmare to use to concoct your backstory around for your lost soul. For it will be needed to not only design your forthcoming mystery, the powers of the Onryo itself, but more importantly, the curse that will go and drive the entirety of your story. which is will be the next thing we'll need to go and focus on with our design process. Now, while traditionally there isn't a deadly hex or jinx attached to every instance of Onryo's, in Sadako's case, her curse is very vital to her tale, because it functions not just as her weapon of choice, but it's also the very inciting incident that jumpstarts the story. Incurring the wrath of someone like Sadako isn't something that just happens by random happenstance. Ooh, no. It's because her victims poked their nose where it didn't belong, and now they only have a week to deal with the consequences. Talk about one hell of an adventure hook, eh? But the key thing I want to point out here is what this does to the power dynamic between the characters. The second anyone watches Sadako's tape, they are essentially giving her the full power to ending their life. There is no fighting her, no talking things out, no running away. Only a cruel, traumatic death awaits at the end. That is, unless they copy her tape and spread her curse onto others. Can you imagine what that would do to a lawful good character or to a beloved NPC of the party? It would be something else for sure, which is why I'm stressing that you do not want to go and gloss over the curse of your tale. And the sweet thing is, you don't even need to make the stakes that complicated. Take the VHS tape that contains Sadako's curse. It's a simple item that can easily be watched by mistake or even shared to other unassuming victims. And what's even worse is that Sadako can easily go and replace it if it was ever destroyed, because back in the 90s, VHS was everywhere. As for the nature of your death curse itself, that should ultimately be established by the story of your Onryo. And the more we can personally tie into your ghost, the better. Like how 2002's The Ring tied in the 7 days people had to live to symbolize the very same week Sadako suffered in the well before she died alone in the dark. You can never go wrong with a little poetic justice in my book. Now we have our Onryo and their curse at hand, I want to turn the rest of our focus today into finding a way to present it to our players. Because unless you want them in on what you're doing, we'll need to find a very clever way to sneak in our story hooks. For those running their games using systems like Kids on Bikes or Don't Look Back, you'll have a bit of an easier time not having to worry like those running D&D 5th edition who may have players who can use magic to spoil what they're up to behind the screens. Either way, your curse will be your bestest buddy with starting things off, especially if you have a cursed item. Since all you really have to do is simply set that cursed thing in a place where you know someone will mess with it. Oh we are looking at you, innocent kids and naive goofballs. But if you continue with a player group who are more cautious than not, you might actually have to go and consider taking my advice from earlier and curse a beloved NPC. It's up to you whether they succumb to the effects of the curse before your players find out about it, but I would advise letting them in on what's going on right from the get-go. If for no other reason than to motivate your heroes to examine things for themselves. Maybe even baiting them to willfully get cursed in the hope of receiving more information to help save their friend. Because don't forget, the footage on Sadako's tape was not just meant to go and creep out the audience. Oh no, it was also meant to go and showcase a series of very creepy, mysterious hints about the poor girl's past. And whether you do the same via your curse or your Onryo slowly growing in power, you're still going to want to employ a similar tactic to guide your players along. Because the fact of the matter is, while the majority of your gameplay may be taken up by your players' investigation, your curse should always be like a ticking time bomb above their heads. Encourage them to not dilly-dally and to move things along. And if that means you have to go and set a few things on fire or blast your players with a few visions of the past, so be it. It will all serve you well, and building up the threat of your Onryo all the better. And how you end up playing your final confrontation can only really be determined by your players and you. Because while it may be cool to go and try to recreate the ending of The Ring, I cannot imagine every table appreciating that despite their best efforts to uncover the past, it did little in changing their fates. So you should make sure to play to your group's tastes. Maybe have them stumble on a past victim or have someone outside their social group succumb to the Onryo first. Offer them something to give them one final chance to grasp what they must do to survive. The only existing element your Onryo should have with Sadako is that they ultimately will win in the end. Because no matter if your players actually manage to placate their rage or succumb to their curse, your Onryo is undying, their hatred everlasting, their lust for vengeance never ending. Your players may live to see another day, but their foe will have all the time in the world to spread their evil onto the next fool who dares cross their path. Next time on Creature Creator.
Hey kids, guess what? It's summertime! It's the perfect season for a bike ride, to go swimming by the lake, or maybe even make a new friend. And in 2 weeks, we are going to be floating on down to our local sewer here to see what kind of trouble we can get into. Hope to see you there!
Hey, thank you so much for watching today. I wanted to take the time to express real quick my gratitude to all the suggestions you've been sending in, so keep them coming. And to make sure you don't miss out on the videos I'll be making on those suggestions, make sure to subscribe. And if you don't, no worries, I love you anyway, and you're still beautiful. Take care.